Hey, what's happening? My name is Adine, this is my beautiful wife Melinda. Together we are Hustlin' Hooks. It's time for the monthly numbers.
In this video, we are going to break down our numbers for the month of April. We're going to cover how much we sold and how much we get to keep.
Indeed, this is our first ever full-time month, so we'll kind of talk about that to transition and how we feel in general about our performance for the month. And maybe some things we're going to change for May.
That's right. To review our numbers, we're using our spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet that Dean designed. He did a really great job putting it together, and it breaks down your monthly summary report. So as we sell items, we enter the data, the shipping cost, the platform they sell on, the fees that we paid, and it automatically calculates our gross profit, our net profit, lots of good stuff, lots of very helpful information that you should know as a small business owner for your own business, for not just tax reasons, but also to gauge the health of your business. And like us, to set goals for the next month, see where we're at, see where we're lacking, and improvements that we can be making.
Indeed, yeah, the numbers are everything in business. So link down below if you guys want to check it out. There are videos explaining it, tutorials. There's also a Facebook tech support group. If you're not super tech savvy, I'm in there talking to you guys all the time. And yeah, so check it out if you like. First number I'm going to cover is the number of total sales across all platforms. This includes eBay, local deals, Facebook Marketplace with shipping, Etsy, and Poshmark. Those are the platforms that we handle. 99% of the time we're on eBay. The other ones are kind of filler at this point.
Right.
Something we're trying to figure out. So we sold 288 items in April, which is second best this year. Last month in March, we sold 310 items.
So it's not a huge difference, but it's significant enough where it made us look at it. So that's 22 sales. That's almost, that's like 2 days worth of items that we didn't sell. So it's interesting. Number of sales doesn't always give you a great idea though. There's a lot more to dig into. Is your store staying consistent in its selling practices? So 20 sales off it's not concerning, but it's something to note for sure. But again, we need to look a little bit closer at the numbers to figure out how much we made off of those sales.
The only significant difference between March and April is one less day, but that doesn't really mean much because back in February we outperformed January and that was 3 less days. So it's, like Melinda said, it's not significant, but definitely something to keep an eye out. Our gross sales for the month were $15,226. This of course includes the shipping and everything together. This is how much money was given to us before we start deducting the costs of doing business. And in compared to last month, we did $15,627. So we're roughly $400 behind last month, and that is a little bit. To me, it's a little bit upsetting because we had a full-time month. And last month, Melinda was dedicated, part-time plus, and I was part-time. And we did more gross sales last month than we did this month. So that's something that's upsetting, I'm not upset about it, but just something that I'm not really proud of, I guess.
I have to throw in here that I was actually expecting a transition period. I think in our last numbers video, I specifically said I would be happy with 15,000 gross again for this month. And we hit that, so I feel pretty good about it. I do know that there are specific improvements that we can make going into the next month, but it was Adine's first month, so of course we needed to figure that out. So when I was part-time plus, I would spend 3 days just gung-ho, just processing everything. When you add another person into the mix, the way things are situated, who's using the room, who's using this, who's doing what, that's a lot, that's more coordination. It's twice the coordination because you have twice as many people working in the same small space, right, trying to figure out what's the best way to do things and what's the best schedule. This was also balancing YouTube, life, yeah, regular life. So I'm not mad about making 15,000 in a month, but I do see where Adine can pull that frustration out. I think he quit, and it was just like, okay, we're gonna go hard and we're gonna get it and we're gonna just knock it out of the park. And I think you were probably hoping for like a $20,000 month.
That was my expectation for us, was 20K. So I mean, falling $5,000 short of that kind of goal to me is a bit upsetting. But again, for me, this is just analyzing the numbers and then just trying to figure out what to do. And like Melinda said, we've already talked about that kind of stuff earlier this morning about transition, and you know, there's a lot of inefficiencies that we need to remove and efficiencies that we need to implement, and that's just that's business 101. That's our strength, is, you know, analyzing and figuring things out. My background is, you know, logistics, warehousing, manufacturing. I'm all about efficiencies and processes. So definitely just, you know, what do we need to do next? So anyways, again, gross sales don't mean anything. You have to look at your deductions. So the first thing is the cost of goods sold. So how much money did we spend to get 15,000 in sales? And this month it was $2,758 were the cost of goods. So another way to look at it is 2758 turned into 15,226.
I think that's good. I do. You know, it's almost 5 times your investment on your money as a gross number. So that's really great, I think.
Shipping costs were $2,222. Again, free shipping model. That's the, you know, we deduct that from the gross, of course.
Yeah, let's talk about the free shipping model. Some people might say, well, you would have made $2,000 more if you didn't offer a free shipping model. But that's not necessarily true, because we believe that offering free shipping makes our products more desirable. We believe that we get more sales with our free shipping. So that $2,000 to us is just a cost of doing business and being more appealable on the platforms that we sell on.
And the $2,200 that we spent, we didn't spend that money. We built in, right? We've said this before, we build it into our model. So if something is worth 50 plus shipping, it's 70 free shipping. To us, it's almost the same thing, and we pass on those savings to our customers. So we're super happy with that.
Yeah.
And that's right in line with last month. We did $2,100, so makes sense.
Yeah.
The approximate fees were $1,730 across all platforms.
Yeah, as we say every time, you know, that's just the cost of doing a business. So
yeah, not much to say. Yeah. In comparison to last month, it was $1,866. So we did a couple more local deals this month, so our percentage was down. We also sold more on Facebook, which brought the average down because Facebook fees are lower.
Yeah, and we'll do a video on that coming up. We're gonna kind of talk about our experience selling on Facebook, but that's an important thing to note, is they do only take 5%. And usually with what we've been currently doing on Facebook is the buyer also pays for shipping on that.
Yeah, it's working pretty well. So the next number is our net profit, which isn't the last number we're gonna cover. So our net profits were $8,515 for the month.
So net is that first gross sales number minus everything that we just talked about.
And the last number is our net adjusted profits, which is pre-tax, what's in our bank account. And that's $8,372 net adjusted, and that means?
So you might be wondering why there are those two numbers and why they're different. So our adjusted net takes into account if we had any returns, which we did have more returns. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And anything where if we gave like a partial discount or any money back, things like that. So that very last number is the most important number. That's what we actually get to keep pre-tax.
Yeah, so of course we have our deductions, our CPA is going to take care of that, but that's our taxable net income minus those deductions. Consult your CPA, as we always say. Speaking of returns, this month we had 7 returns, and that's really for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's because we had such a heavy sales month the month before, some of those kind of trickled over. And we also had a couple of mistakes that we made that, you know, triggered returns.
Yeah, and obviously returns are not a fun part of the business, but they're a part of your business. So you just deal with them, you take them as they come. We had low returns last month, a little bit higher this month. Like Adine said, it's probably due to selling more. The more you sell, you're probably gonna get more returns. That's just a fact when you're dealing with pre-owned and pre-loved items.
But that's still only 2.4% return rate, which I think is fantastic. So typically we're in that 2 to 3%, 2.4 is fantastic. Last month we did only 2 returns for the entire month, so 5 more this month, but again, perfectly fine. What do we look at, Melinda? Do we look at the long-term average, the long term, right? Because it hurts, it sucks, it's bad, it's disappointing. You know, nobody likes it, but if you just keep doing this with your hand, do this with us, folks, do it at home, get off your chair. It's the long-term average. Good sales day, bad sales day, bad returns day, good returns day, great month, better month. It's just, that's it. You just have to do that.
Yeah, but the important thing is account for those, because again, it affects at the end of the year or quarterly how much you're gonna pay in taxes, because again, that's money that you didn't get to keep. So you still wanna know what your return amount is. It's very important, and that's one thing about these numbers is that they won't lie to us.
Right.
That way we can see we're having a better month. We can see that we need to make a push. We check in on these numbers constantly.
Right.
We know when we have to put in some overtime and make a big push, which is exactly what we did this weekend coming up to it. We made a big push because we were just enough away from 15,000 where we knew we had to get our butts in gear.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And we knew we had to do that because of the numbers.
Yeah, data over feelings every day of the week. And all those returns only cost us $143. So they weren't huge, like, oh my goodness, we lost thousands. So $140 in 15,000 gross sales is really insignificant.
Yeah, and it tells you something. It tells you should look at your store, see what you're doing, look at your practices. Is there anything that we could have improved? Is it just, something that happens? Sometimes you just get returns for fit or whatever. You can't really control some of the returns.
Right.
But you can look and see, well, that's a lot, or that's more than I had. Were those controllable on my part so that going into next month, I'll have less?
And look at the reasons, was it like the electronics didn't work? Well, I didn't test them well enough. The size was wrong. I didn't double check my size. Like those are the, stuff happens, when you're listing so much and you're dealing with so many different categories, you're gonna make mistakes, but learn from those mistakes, just don't dwell on them. The last thing I really wanna cover are averages, which I think are kind of fun. So the first one, that's right, the long-term average. So our average gross sales for the month, so per sale was $52.87. So almost $53 per sale on average, which was actually more than last month, which was only $50.40. I'm pretty happy with that raising your average sales price is gonna help you in the long term for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the gross sales price. So let's talk about the net sales price.
$29.07, which is awesome. It's about $1 more per transaction than last month, which is really good. And
yeah, I mean, that all adds up. So $1 more per transaction
is $288 more, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that it does all add up, and you just want to keep pushing for better quality items so you can raise the gross sales price, because when you think about it in a logical sense, the more it sells for, you'll have more wiggle room after shipping and everything for more that you keep.
The last average I want to cover is the number of sales per day, and this month it was 9.6 in comparison to last month. Last month was 10, so we're 0.4 worse than last month, which is fine.
But again, we did a really big clean out near the middle to end of last month. So our store actually had less items going into this month than it did in previous months. So seeing it as a lower number is not a concern. The main thing that we're looking at is that it stayed on par with the average number of listings that we had, and is actually a little bit more than the average number of listings we have. So that also explains a little bit why we had a lower number of sales. Like we mentioned, you can't just look at one number and expand on that like it's the definition of your whole store.
Right.
So we had less listings. Our average was still really strong for our store numbers, but that's a piece in why there were 20 less listings, because we had less things in our store available, so our average was a little bit lower.
The other thing too to think about, if you're on social media like Instagram and someone shows you their screenshot of like their 90-day eBay total, it's like $100,000, or in some sort of group and they're like $75,000. You don't know what that actually means. That's why we do these videos, because you have no idea until they actually break down and are transparent with you. And that's the problem with social media, is the lack of transparency sometimes. So Yeah, great. I sold a car for $50,000 on eBay. I paid $45,000 for it. My net profits were $1,200 after fees and taxes, right? So you don't know that. So don't just look at someone's snapshot and be like, they're so much better than me. No, you have no idea.
Only use those numbers to motivate yourself and say, how am I going to get to those numbers?
Yeah.
But also keeping in mind, how are you going to get to those numbers and still remain profitable? Not to take away from the people who are doing those numbers, because a lot of them are doing amazing. So you can do those averages and still have a strong profit, but just don't let it discourage you.
So one cool thing that I just thought about doing, I just did a quick formula to see the average days that our items sit before they sell, because I think that's very important and it tells us a lot about our store. So let's talk about those numbers as kind of a bonus in this video, because we've never done this before.
Let's get the oldest ones out of the way first, sort of like starting with bad news first. So our oldest listings, we're gonna do the oldest three, were 317 days, 366 days.
A year.
Yeah, and 408 days.
Over a year, okay? Keep that in mind, but also, how cool is this? We had 27 items sell the same day. So that tells you a little bit. But in the last number I want to talk about is the average, because
the average of everything that we sold was about 51 days this month. So just under 2 months was the time that these items sat in our store before they shipped out to new homes.
and you can decide that and look at it many different ways, but that's just a good indicator. So what can we do to decrease the number of days our items are listing? That's the key, because you want to keep churning that inventory, right?
Right, you want to get that average lower and lower and lower. So just always be constantly checking your store, seeing if there's something you can do to move those items that are sitting. And we recommend starting at about 30 to 60 days looking at your items. Look at the price, look at the pictures,
the title, the descriptions, the sell-through rate, the desirability.
Can you send offers, anything. So that's it. Those are our April numbers.
That's it. Like and subscribe if you like to. Follow our journey over on Instagram if you're not doing so already. We share a lot of day-to-day stuff there. And we're going to be pumping out a lot of content coming up. So we hope you stick around, and we hope you learn something about the actual numbers of reselling.
Yeah, and as always, until next time, take care.
Take care.